Hey guys, Tomboy601, and welcome to Best of the Line, Episode 3. Today we are talking American light cruisers. If you haven't been around for Best of the Line, I understand the idea is we're going to go and pick the best tech tree ship of a line and the best premium ship. And the reason we're doing this is because, well, I have just hit the favorite button on every single ship I've ever gotten, and that's become untenable. So I want a nice, usable list of what I think are the best ships up at my favorites. And I figured while going through this process, might as well make a video about each line, talking about its strengths, its weaknesses, so that if you're like new to the game and want to get a base overview of the line, there is a great video that you can click on. So speaking of clicking on, checking the YouTube analytics recently, 2/3 of you aren't subscribed. So if you're not subscribed and you've been enjoying these videos, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thank you. This week we're going to focus on the other split from that line. Last week was the heavy cruisers, this week is the light cruisers. This half still focuses on guns, but they are smaller, faster firing guns. These cruisers actually end up keeping the 152mm guns that start out with the line. The diameter of the shell does not get any bigger as we go down the line. Instead, we get things like range increases and fire chance increases, which will get pretty spicy. These guns feature pretty high firing angles, which can be a blessing or a curse. What it means is you can easily fire over islands while in concealment, which is great. The bad news, though, is they tend to have very long shell flying times. You can see how long it's going to take a shell to get to its target. When you look in the bottom left-hand corner when you're zoomed in, that's your shell flight time. And you can see you can get some fairly long distance chucks that you have to do. And once you get to the kind of outer reaches, the extreme reaches of what these guns can fire at, you're really only going to be effective up against battleships that are kind of going slowly, because any sort of maneuvering is going to end up making it pretty hard to hit anything. The playstyle of these ships, because of that high firing angle, is very much going to be in and around islands, using them for concealment, and then combining the high DPM, the high fire rate of the shells, with very good damage over time characteristics thanks to the fires. And what you're going to want to do with these ships is cause permafires. And last week I actually received a comment on one of my videos asking, hey, Tommy, what is a permafire? So a permanent fire or a permanent flood or a permafire permaflood is when a ship is on its damage con cooldown, i.e. it has a fire started on it and it hits the damage con. Well, when you hit the damage control, you have a limit where you're locked out from hitting that damage control party. Again, it's usually about a minute and a half, 90 seconds for most battleships. During that time, if you can set additional fires, they won't be able to put them out until that cooldown period has occurred. And this is incredibly powerful. To give you an idea in why these ships need to focus on the damage over time. Damage dealt by each instance of fire on a ship occurs at a fixed rate of 0.3% of the ship's total health pool per fire chance. Each fire has a base duration of 60 seconds for battleships and 30 seconds for cruisers and destroyers. So a fire that is allowed to burn that full 60 seconds is going to consume 18% of a battleship's health, or 9% of a cruiser or destroyer's. But really, as a light cruiser with HE, you're focusing on battleships. So if you can get a permafire established on a battleship relatively soon after they come off a damage con, you're looking at doing some massive damage to them. And when you're doing this, one thing to keep in mind is a lot of battleship players will run a skill that's called Fight Fire with Fire. What this does is, first off, it reduces fire damage overall by 15%, which is very useful. But the other thing that occurs with it is if your damage con is on cooldown and you have 3 fires set on you, it automatically extinguishes all the fires. So if you're playing these ships, my maximum recommended number of fires you want to set on an enemy battleship is going to be 2. That's going to do a ton of damage to them, and then maybe flip over to AP because the AP isn't too shabby. Anyways, that's my fun little educational how the game works, game mechanics little rant for this video. Let's talk about the commander you should be running with these ships, and that's going to be Norman Scott. I know we're actually using a free-to-play commander as the recommended one. I feel like it's the first time in the series. It is. My recommended build, however, not free-to-play, Mikawa and Haru, she adds more fire chance and more range, which just is more better. If you don't have Haru, you can run Mimbelli for you free-to-play players. The skills that we are running are Burn It Down, XXL, and Igniter. Both of those add to the fire chance. Then we are running Punch Through, which is going to help buff the AP, because the AP isn't, like, we're going to talk a lot about the HE, but the AP on these boats is pretty good as well. And then Fixated. Finally, the legendary skill we're running is fully packed, so we get extra charges of those consumables. Speaking of consumables, let's go ahead and talk about the consumable progression. It's similar to the heavies in this line. First, you start off with a damage con and a sonar. Then as you progress, you're going to get a fighter plane at tier 4. Then at tier 5, that sonar can be swapped with enhanced AA. I will say that these vessels do have some fairly fantastic AA characteristics. They are very strong against planes to begin with, and at tier 8 and legendary tier, the Seattle and Worcester do have dual purpose guns, i.e. the main battery is also counted and kind of part of the damage calculations for the anti-aircraft suite. So these are already deadly boats to aircraft. I don't think I would ever really recommend running enhanced AA unless you're divvying up with a aircraft carrier and you know you're going to be facing off against an aircraft carrier and you want to build into an AA sort of build. But if not, I would say you don't really want to run enhanced AA. Finally, at tier 7, you are going to fill the final slot of the consumables with a heal, and then the fighter plane will be able to be swapped out with the American radar, which is a 9-kilometer radar. Apologies for last week. I was looking at Indianapolis when I said 9.9. The base American radar is a 9-kilometer 30-second radar, which is still a fantastic, fantastic radar. So those are the consumables. Let's talk about the default build. What I would go with if I was to build up a ship. My go-to is going to be aiming system mod 1. Then prop mod, because we're going to be behind islands, so being able to accelerate and decelerate to get going and try to prop juke behind the island if we do find ourselves in trouble is going to be very important. Then concealment mod. I think concealment mod will end up giving you more ability to get into cover without being seen, but you're going to very much telegraph where you are as you start firing. I think steering gears gives you more survivability if you've been seen and you have to break from that island cover and you're going to need to be out in open water. I think you're going to get a little bit more survivability out of the ship if you're running steering gears. And then finally, we're running main battery mod 3 just to cycle those guns quicker and quicker. That's because that is going to be what's going to do it for you. So with all of that said, what do I think is the best tech tree ship for these boats? I'm going to have to go with Cleveland. Cleveland is incredibly strong. It's the tier 7 tech tree ship. It used to be the top of the line, and then we got Seattle and Worcester. I think Cleveland does a fantastic job at just pumping out damage. The AP on it is surprisingly good. If you get into a position where you have the broadsides of a battleship, just wait, because you can do some pretty good damage to it, especially up into that superstructure. You have a pretty good fire chance with it. Like, Cleveland is a very strong damage dealer at the tier, and yeah, I think Cleveland is by far the best tech tree choice. As far as premiums go, though, we're gonna go back in history a little to the first campaign ship of World of Warships Legends. We're talking Atlanta. I think you can make an argument for Boise, but I think Atlanta, one, it holds just a special place in everyone's heart who's been around for a while, and you know it does suffer a little at these times, but I think it is just a fantastic premium tier 6 boat. Atlanta, she's a light cruiser. Her gimmick, her shtick, first off, instead of the 152s we've been talking about, scratch that. She has 827 millimeter guns. And you may be saying, 127 millimeter, that sounds familiar. Yes, she has 8 destroyer turrets on her deck that you can rain down fire. Atlanta used to be a menace of this game, and when played correctly, she can still do fantastically. So yeah, that's why she's going to be the premium to go with. Anyways, guys, that is this week's best of the line. Once again, that's going to be Cleveland and Atlanta. If you like these videos, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. See ya.